evening. You're watching the US Election Watch. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. Let's take a look at the headlines coming in. First up, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump focus on fallout from the Hurricane Helene. Harris set to visit affected areas soon, says White House. Donald Trump heads to Georgia to meet some of the victims of the hurricane. Donald Trump dials up anti-immigration rhetoric in Wisconsin. I will liberate Wisconsin, says Donald Trump as he slams Vice President Kamala Harris. All eyes on the first vice presidential debate that will take place on the 1st of October. Kamala Harris pushes for a second presidential debate and remains to be seen whether that will actually happen. All right, a quick update coming in as far as the latest in the race to the White House after Hurricane Helene ravaged roughly 6 states in the United States. Vice President Kamala Harris cancelled all her campaign events and is set to return back to Washington from Las Vegas for a briefing on the kind of response that has come in from the government on the hurricane, which has so far killed. In fact, some reports seem to suggest that the total number could be as high as 100. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit Georgia and is set to visit communities that have been heavily impacted by the hurricane. In recent rallies, former President Trump has escalated his personal attacks on his rival, the Democrat presidential nominee Kamala Harris. In fact, calling her mentally impaired while he was also saying that she should be impeached and prosecuted. The big event of this week, of course, is the vice presidential debate between the two vice presidential nominees, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's running mates are all set for the big showdown. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance are preparing for the highly anticipated debate that is scheduled to take place on the 1st of October on CBS. All right, in fact, let's now take a look and focus on the first big debate that we are having today on the show, which is around well, the latest as far as the politics surrounding hurricane. Now, this has been a very devastating hurricane that has hit US, but there's been enough and more politics that's taking place on both sides. To tell our viewers before I get in the guest this evening, well, the death toll, as I said, has crossed 100. Donald Trump has also made remarks saying that you will be okay, remarks that have actually sparked huge controversy. And even as there's been some reports suggesting that Project 2025, which Democrats have linked to the Trump campaign, says and talks at length about privatizing some of those weather outfits as well and weather agencies. Where does this take the campaign and the election with just 4 weeks to go? That's the big discussion. Ajay Paturia joins me on the broadcast, representing the big Democrat voice on the show. And we also have Matt Klink, who's a Republican strategist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time speaking to me. This is unfortunate. People have lost their lives, livelihoods have been lost, houses have been devastated, communities have been ravaged. And what I see here is a lot of politics playing over people's misery. Let me take that as and give both of you the opportunity to respond to that. Let's start with you, Ajay. How do you react and how the Democrats have reacted so far in terms of some of the messaging that has come in from the Trump campaign? Your first remarks on that.
The messaging related to the immigration?
No, I'm asking about the hurricane issue
okay.
on
The
which
hurricane.
Donald Trump commented saying that you'll be okay, and there was a very sharp retort that came in from the Democrats.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the response of President Biden and the Vice President Harris, they have been providing all the resources which are needed to support the hurricane, and the administration is working around the clock to support that. But if you look at when Trump was in the power, he refused to provide support to California fires, and he basically restricted the support out there. But this administration, President Biden and Vice President Harris are president for all Americans, and they are doing all that can be done. Definitely, it's a very difficult situation for people who are living out there. But this is not the time to play politics on this. This is the time to support and get all the resources needed so that some of the lives of people's lives can be eased and they can get the resources they need.
Matt, come in there. What the Democrats are saying that elections will keep happening, we'll keep campaigning, but this is people's misery on which maybe political statements can be avoided.
Well, look, I mean, the last response just proves that the Democrats are injecting politics into this. I will add that in all of this, Kamala Harris didn't stop her campaigning. Joe Biden, because he's mentally addled, was on some beach in Delaware somewhere, not doing anything. And Donald Trump is going to do what a commander in chief should do. He's going to be on the ground in Valdosta, Georgia today, offering support. And letting people know that as much as this tragedy did occur, that things are going to be okay. But this is just a classic example of, who is actually leading our country right now. And right now, it certainly is not Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris is off campaigning. So they need someone to step into that void. And Donald Trump will be in Valdosta, Georgia today to demonstrate that he does care about the people and that yeah, things will ultimately be okay. Hurricanes do hit with regularity in that part of the world, and they want someone on the ground to support them.
Ajay, respond to that.
Yeah,
here is a
absolutely.
presidential campaign that is taking place, and one of the candidates is well within his rights to question government's response. What he felt was inadequate, and therefore he stepped in.
Well, unfortunately, Trump is running out of real issues to talk about, so he has to come to this, to talk about in the campaign. But let me tell you, there has been hurricanes over the years and years every year, and there's a very established FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Response System Organization, and which immediately jumps in, whether it was fires in Hawaii or whether it's hurricane over here or hurricane in other parts of Florida. FEMA is the agency which immediately jumps in, and President Biden and the administration people and Vice President Harris has been in touch with the right team of people who are working on it, and they're getting daily reports, and the White House is closely monitoring it. So, and it's more welcome. I mean, if President Trump also wants to visit it, it's always good so that leaders from both sides meet the people and get the issues, what is important, where the help is needed, and
Okay.
relate to the agencies. So it's all good. I mean, there's nothing wrong in anybody visiting over there.
Okay, Matt, respond to the fact that the Project 25 issue has been raised again by the Democrats, and they've said that it very clearly states that under that there is a provision for privatization of weather companies, essentially saying that such climate induced disasters would be harder to identify and predict and impair the response of the government.
Well, you're again, the Trump administration had nothing, or Donald Trump had nothing to do with Project 2025. That was created by the Heritage Foundation. He said all along that he doesn't support it, yet the news media and Democrats still beat that drum. So look, irrespective of what Project 2025 said, Donald Trump has demonstrated that he is going to go into any part of the country where he thinks that he can reach voters and impact them. Now, it is always unfortunate, and I agree. I do agree with what my fellow guest said, that it is well within the right of both presidential campaigns to go into any part of the country to not only talk to voters, but also to lend support. And that's what Donald Trump is going to do. So, I mean, you can beat the Project 2025 drum, but we have a saying in America, particularly in the South, that dog won't hunt. It's not related to the Trump campaign. And as much as Democrats would like it to be, it's kind of fallen flat at this point.
So fair enough. Maybe Project 2025 is an issue that's being raised by the Democrats to probably deflect from the real issue. But then the question that is coming by and being raised by a lot of Americans is that this is a time where probably some unity could be displayed by the two candidates, because it is people's misery. 100 people have lost their lives. Do you think this is a time to probably build those bridges, and then politics could start once again once some of this issue has been addressed?
Well, Americans can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think that, Donald Trump is all for bringing people together. He has a very strong base of support. And again, contrary to what my guest said most recently, the issue set that's being discussed right now, particularly the failed economy, the misery of Bidenomics and Biden-Harrisnomics over the last 4 years, coupled with an immigration system that is out of control, is very favorable for Donald Trump. And that's why he is performing so strongly in the 7 swing states that are ultimately going to matter for this election.
Okay, very quickly, Ajay, I'd give you a chance to respond to some of what Matt's commentary has been around the fact that, you keep flagging the Project 2025 issue simply because you're deflecting from the real issues that matter.
I will tell you that the Project 2025 proposes, which is close people associated with Trump who has been proposing 2025. It says the entire federal bureaucracy, including independent agencies such as Department of Justice, be placed under direct presidential control, and that proposes executive theory. It says that to remove several broad FBI agencies and people depending from agencies. It talks about eliminating job protection for thousands of government employees who can then be replaced by political appointees. And Trump has clearly said that he's going to put on it, and so on, removing education department. And so this is something which is talking about being an autocrat from day one and threat to a democracy.
Okay, so Matt is saying this is the deflection. This is the deflection what he was speaking about earlier. Okay, so I think in about 4 weeks' time, a little over 4 weeks, we will know what really the answer of the American electorate is, which side is it leading on, and which of the arguments it's actually buying. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and speaking to me on US election watch. Shifting gears now to the other big story, and in fact, one of the biggest themes that really are having a huge impact on what the election is all about. US election 2024 is incomplete till we mention immigration, one of the 3 key issues on which this election is essentially being fought on. And some of the data that former President Donald Trump shared regarding immigrants and crime, linking them, is incorrect. In fact, Donald Trump seems to be promoting a fair bit of rhetoric as far as immigration is concerned, and this was in Wisconsin where he had held his latest rally, and he's also slammed his opponent Kamala Harris with some very strong remarks. But what really is the on-ground story? How important is illegal immigration? Does it really matter in border states, and could it become the deciding factor? Can Kamala Harris bridge the gap between her and Donald Trump on the key issue of immigration? That's exactly what we will be discussing today. But before that, take a look at this report that tells you exactly why this is one of the central themes of this election.
Another one because she got beaten tonight, but I don't.
In there, was she successful?
Okay, so some of the numbers, let me just put that out, and then we also get in Anjana Shankar, who's a senior journalist of the national newspaper based in Abu Dhabi. She was in some of these border states, and she's going to give us a sense of how important or critical these areas, these states could be in deciding the winner. Okay, Anjana Shankar joins me, and I'm going to keep coming putting out those information, whether it is about the arrest rate, the immigrants, the undocumented immigrants, all of that numbers we'll keep putting out. But Anjana, my first question to you is that, you've been at some of these border states, you've witnessed some of that issue firsthand. Talk to us about the scale of this issue and how big a bearing it could have in these elections.
Yeah, thank you for having me. On the onset, I would like to say that with all the debates that we are having around the issue of immigration, all the political tit for tat that we see between Kamala Harris and Trump, all the vitriolic which is associated with the issue of immigration, especially from the Trump camp, as somebody who was there, as you said, when you see the issue up close, it's nothing like what we see in these debates, because what you see there at the border are hundreds and thousands of humans. When you interact with them, the stories are really heartrending. So no matter what the political divide is about the issue of immigration, these people keep coming because they are fleeing from violence. They are looking for a better life in another country. They are leaving their homeland. And we're talking about women, sometimes pregnant women, families, men. They're all taking this very dangerous trip across the desert, across Mexico and the Darien Gap, coming through to the US borders to secure a life. So that is the reality that you see there. And when you talk to people, what struck me was all these conversations about drug mafia coming through, people who are invading the US, people who are dangerous to the US, rapists, drug lords. I did not personally see any of that. These are people who desperately cross and wait for the border patrol. To take their names, register them, and let them free so that they can start a new life.
So I want to ask you two questions. I get it. What you're saying is you talk about the human misery aspect of it, the human angle of some of these people who want to cross the border. But the other side to it is, and which is what the essential issue is. I mean, one can debate and have a discussion about, how much of what Donald Trump says is factually correct or not. But the fact that the southern states of America are witnessing a huge influx of people coming in is a matter of great concern. I'm not saying this, several polls are saying this, which is why Donald Trump leads Kamala Harris on immigration issue. The question I want to ask you is, did you feel that with the electorate you spoke to the undocumented people who want to come to the US, but what about some of those people who will be voting in the elections on 5th of November? Do they feel this as a major issue?
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. Immigration, especially in this election, it has always been a major issue, political issue in the US, but definitely for this election, it has become the most important issue for the US electorate. One of the reasons is the sheer scale of migrants that have come in. You're talking about around 1.8 million asylum seekers in 2023. And that number, when you pit it against previous year's numbers, the pre-COVID numbers, this is a massive rise. And the diversity of people of different nationalities that are coming from, Chinese, Afghans, not just South Americans, there are Indians, there are a lot of them coming in. So a big issue for the electorate is definitely the question whether this kind of tidal wave of migrants that are coming in, is that going to impact the resources of different states? And it is, various states have spoken about, how offering shelter, free healthcare and housing for these migrants have affected their resources. And for example, some of these border states in 2020, end of 2023, 2024, they have adopted this busing of migrants, which is quite new in the US. When I was there recently, border states like Texas are busing hundreds and thousands of migrants into more so-called liberal states, sanctuary states like New York, Massachusetts, to send these migrants so that they will offer them housing. So there, it's like a tit-for-tat move. So what they're saying is, you have an open door policy for migrants. You're saying that let's welcome these migrants. Okay, you take them. So they're giving money and they're putting migrants on the bus and sending them, truckloads of them, into these liberal states. And for example, in the Logan International Airport in Boston, there were hundreds of migrants who were sleeping at the airport. Most of the shelters that governments provides were overflowing. So there is definitely a problem of states struggling to meet the financial burden of these migrants, a tidal wave of migrants coming into the US. So it's definitely an issue for the electorate.
Okay, so yes, it's a major issue, and the latest polls, I'm talking about the latest Pew research that has come in, says that 6 out of 10 Americans rate immigration as very important in determining who they will vote for. And some of the other polls suggest that they prefer Trump, they trust Trump to handle the issue more effectively than Kamala Harris. I'm not getting into some of the other details and the vitriolic campaign on both sides, but this is the latest poll that has come in. The question I'm asking is that what do you think is the political divide on this issue like? There is of course entrenched positions, but you spoke to a lot of people. Talk to us about the political divide on something as big as this issue.
Yeah, what you said is right. That's exactly what we saw. There are people on two extremes. So no matter what the debates are, no matter what the facts that you put out, they are going to hold on to their sides. There are extreme supporters, people who believe that immigration should be looked upon as a humanitarian issue, there should be a humane approach to immigration. And there is, on the other side of the divide, people who attack migrants. They demonize migrants as people who are invading the US illegally. But in between, people who are sitting on the fence, those are the people who are questioning what are the policies, what are these two candidates putting on the table. Where should we vote depending on what are they talking about when it comes to addressing the political issue. So one major concern that a lot of common people who are neither on the extremes are looking at is there is a consensus among people that no country can have an open border. You cannot just leave the border open and have, hundreds and thousands of people just walk in without any kind of, control. So there is definitely an agreement that you need to secure the border. Yes. But at the same time, people know, and that some people don't admit it, but people know that the immigration system, the asylum system in the US
needs to be revisited.
It is broken.
All right.
And the very fact that there is more than 1 million cases of asylum cases pending within these asylum courts is proof that, the system has to, they have to mend the system if they want to streamline the process.
All right, Anjana, thank you so much for taking out the time, explaining to us in detail about an issue that is likely to decide the future course of the US election. In fact, more news coming in. Well, as I said, one of the biggest issues and events this week is going to be the big vice presidential face-off between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. This is they're going to go head-to-head in a CBS vice presidential debate that will take place on the 1st of October. In fact, J.D. Vance and Tim Walz face contrasting pressures in the highly anticipated debate. To be fair, they're both Midwesterners, and this is essentially going to be the last debate before the 5th of November election, because Donald Trump has rejected all efforts by the Democrat Party to have one more round of debate with Kamala Harris. So this is essentially going to be the last debate of this election. All right. Shifting focus now to the latest as far as Pennsylvania is concerned. It's, remember, the most crucial swing state, 19 electoral college votes it accounts for. Remains to be seen who will win, whether it's going to be Kamala Harris, who could actually win over Pennsylvania. It is said to be the toughest for Democrats, and Harris leads Trump in several swing states, but Pennsylvania possibly holds the key to the White House. Take a look at this report.
One of the most important states in the race to the White House is Pennsylvania. The last time Joe Biden won the state by just over 1% and went on to win the election. Biden was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and his local ties, cultural roots helped him secure victory in 2020. Biden outpaced Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign and cruised to victory. With Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket now, the game has changed, as her chances of winning in the region look dicey. It's not just the loss of Biden as the candidate that worries local Democrats. Harris, who is a Californian and spearheaded the party's post-Dobbs abortion messaging, make for an awkward fit in a closely watched region that's historically been a center of anti-abortion activity. Biden represents an older version of the party that was closely tied to organized labor and focused on economic issues that was perceived as a force against the party's progressive side. As opposed to her past tours in the state, Harris is now aiming to make inroads outside major metropolitans, targeting the middle-class working people. There are some positives for Harris to look at. According to a recent Franklin and Marshall College poll, Harris leads Trump by 3 points in Pennsylvania. However, in the northeastern part of the state, Trump was comfortably ahead by 7% points. Harris has also narrowed Trump's lead among white Catholic voters according to EWTN Real Clear poll. However, it will mostly boil down to the issue of abortion, as many Democratic Party supporters believe that it is the main reason why Trump wins the white Catholic vote. Vishal Vivek reports for NDTV World, Bureau Report.
With that, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching.